is it possible to change things? Can I rise above the flood? Will the process cleanse my soul? Or is it always in the blood?
I want to welcome everybody back to the In the Blood podcast. My name is AC Bergen-Fischer, and with me, as always, is the marshmallows to my hot chocolate, Jason the Dice Man Moore. Jason, welcome.
Hi, I'd prefer to be a Rice Krispie Square.
Well, that would explain the shave. Changing the shape and texture on us.
Yep.
And it should be interesting because we sometimes record a couple of episodes in advance. So depending on the order of how things come out, it may look that you've got like an instantly growing beard or I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Just for those out there that don't know, it takes me about 3 days to actually grow some decent facial hair.
3 days, you sneeze and you got a full beard. You kidding me?
That's my ass hair.
Oh, geez. So how do we get ourselves back on track here? You know, I'm just gonna like not even bother with a smooth transition because I don't know how to get us back from that.
Do it.
Family estrangement. It's a bigger issue than most people want to admit. It affects more of us than you'd think, but the silence around it makes you feel like you're the only one. And when you're in it, when someone you love is no longer part of your life, it's easy to go looking for answers, for guidance, and for something that makes the pain feel less isolating. But most of what's out there, it's not actually helpful. It's advice from broken people offering solutions they can't deliver. People who package up complex emotional realities and sell them like a product. They say healing is a mindset shift, that reconciliation is always within reach. And if you just follow their steps, you'll find peace. But real life doesn't work like that. And estrangement sure as shit doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying every voice in this space is dishonest, but I am saying that everyone I've personally come across has missed the mark badly. They
Yep.
sell certainty, but they don't understand the mess. And the mess is where most of us are living. And I think that's part of why you and I started this podcast, right? Because estrangement, platonic connection, boundaries, identity, these aren't separate issues. They're all tangled up together.
Right.
And when family becomes unsafe or unavailable, we often turn to our other platonic relationships to help meet needs that were never supposed to fall on someone else. The problem is we don't have enough meaningful resources to help us navigate any of this bullshit. So we're left to figure it out ourselves. And I think that's what this conversation is really about, how we learn to build the emotional muscles we were never taught to use, how we grow into the people who can communicate honestly, set boundaries without guilt, and be dependable sources of support, not just for ourselves, but for the people we care about. Because
Mm-hmm.
when the experts fall short, I think it's up to us to become what we're looking for.
Absolutely. And riding that train, one thing that thoroughly pisses me off is how people, experts, and I'm talking people, who have been in the field, who have psychological degrees, have psychology degrees, have masters in how the human mind works and relationships and blah, blah, blah. But 99% of them do this. Well, yeah, but it's family. They're different. It's not. It's another platonic relationship. Unless you're from Alabama, it's another platonic relationship. There's no romanticism. Okay, that's a word now. In a platonic relationship, there is love. I love my mom. I love my dad. I love my sister. But I love Tony, who is not blood. I love my partner, who is not blood. The relationships that people have that are bound, I'm doing air quotes for those who are listening in the audio portion of this, are so mind melded into believing that, well, yeah, but they're blood. It's different. You have to do that. You don't. You don't have to put up with guilt from blood. You don't have to put up with any of the innuendos people put behind the emotional closeness because you're blood. You can have that with anybody. I didn't have it for many, many years with my family because everybody was too angry. But for the last 25 years, I've had it with AC.
I,
And
I like that you bring up that angle too about that. Well, oh, it's your family.
mhm.
That's like, to me, it's no different than going to a woman who's got an abusive partner. He beat the shit out of her. Well, he's your husband.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
What kind of a nonsense argument is that? Like, just come on.
Mhm. Yep. There's so much, I'm going to say guilt ridden association, I guess, because of the blood connection. People live in toxic relationships for years because it's family. And I'm here to say, all those experts that push that bullshit, you're wrong. You are 100% in error because a relationship that is non sexual has a much different dynamic. And it's not because it's blood. If you're blood, it just means that you came out of somebody else's other body part. It doesn't mean you owe them anything more. It doesn't mean you have any more commitment to them. You have as much commitment to them as you choose to put there. I have as much commitment to AC as I choose to put there. It doesn't matter if they're blood. It's what you feel. It's what you think. It's a connection you make. If you have a bad relationship with a parent, you're not a bad person. If you don't talk to your family members anymore, you're not a bad person. You're removing yourself from toxicity. And that toxicity comes in many, many different forms. What may be perfectly kosher for AC and I may be toxic for somebody else because of their mental attributes. That's just the way shit is. You don't hate people or you don't love people because there's a similar type of DNA running in your blood. AC has blood. I have blood. We choose a connection. If you choose to have a connection with your family, you choose to have that connection. If you don't, there should be no guilt attributed to the, well, you know what? I don't get along with my family. And that's fine. You don't get along with the guy behind you in the Tim Hortons line either because he's an idiot. Well, then don't deal with him. It really is that simple. Too many people put the onus of blood. It's almost like they're excusing toxicity in a relationship. Well, you have to do your part. If you don't want that relationship, you don't have to do shit. And it really is that simple. There's no reason for it to be any more complicated than that, in my opinion. Thanks for listening to my rant.
God, I set you the hell off, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
No, listening to everything you're saying, I mean, really what it sounds like is you're seeing something similar to what I'm seeing, which is basically like you've got these self-proclaimed unqualified experts, and I use the term loosely. And again, I don't
Even
care what
qualified
kind of
experts.
psychological degrees are hanging on your wall. If you've got unrelated education and unrelated experience, I'm sorry, you are not an expert. You're just another asshole with the wrong thing to say.
Mhm.
And anybody who's going to come along and basically like counsel you to dismantle a healthy boundary, they're not serving your best interests.
Nope, they're creating anxiety. Yep.
And for too many years, I mean, like I think that's why you and I we tend to get a little charged up and ranty when the topic of family estrangement comes up because
Mhm.
we both had a lot of experience like trying to navigate the complexities of it,
Mhm.
feeling the sting of it for sure. And we've also bumped up against some sometimes well-intentioned people who are dead wrong
Yep.
and other people who were just as dead wrong who weren't well intentioned. They didn't care if anybody healed or not. They're just looking to get popular with a podcast or get rich on their coaching scheme that preys on the desperation, the anguish, and the not knowing where else to turn of people that are navigating this stuff. Because unfortunately, when you're dealing with a platonic relationship, especially a family relationship, the help just doesn't seem to be there. Not real help, anyways. Nothing that I was ever able to use.
And just to prove our point, that shows how conditioned even you are, because you said even family relationships. We're mentally segregating family from, you know,
Good catch.
it's a systemic issue in North America at least.
Yeah, obviously we're not immune to it. I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Yeah, it's so ingrained in us. If somebody comes off and says, "Oh yeah, I'm a relationship expert because I have a psychology degree and I study relationships," and the first thing out of their mouths is, "Okay, but this is your mother, so you have to look at it differently," you're full of crap and your degree ain't worth toilet paper, because it should be treated just like any other platonic relationship. Break it down, find out if it's toxic or if it's a personal issue. That's the first thing you do. If it's toxic, you work out to see if you can figure out a way to fix the toxicity, or if you have to walk away. Those, in my opinion, should be the only two options.
Yeah, and I don't want to like feel like we're just slinging mud at people on the outside. I mean, like technically speaking, I am a relationship expert myself. I would never identify myself as one because I think it's like an awfully egotistical, inaccurate, misleading, and stupid thing to do.
Yep.
I've taken my coaching courses. I've taken specialized courses in how to help people, including myself, navigate complex family relationships,
As you
how
know.
to, basically deal with estrangement. And what
Mm-hmm.
I've learned from taking these courses is nobody seems to know what the hell they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I've had real world experience too. I've had coaching clients who are dealing with this stuff. I've co-hosted two separate podcasts outside of this one, specifically focused on family estrangement.
Right.
I've never come across an expert,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not one. I'm just a person who's dealing with this stuff the same like you are, the same like a lot of people are. We all have relationships, and like just to broaden it a little bit past family here,
Mm-hmm.
we all have relationships, like the non-romantical kind. There are struggles that come along with these.
Yep.
And in the absence of meaningful and educated and actually useful supports, what do we do?
Mm-hmm. We take relationships. So something I've learned, and unfortunately I didn't learn it from my own family estrangement, air quotes again for those listening. I learned from your estrangement that when I do coaching classes now, and somebody says, "Hey, I have an issue with my mom. I want to reconcile, but I don't know what to do." The first thing out of my mouth is, "Okay, take the fact that it's your mom out of the picture. Look at it as a platonic relationship. I do not do family counseling anymore because each relationship is its individual thing. Your relationship with your sister is different than your relationship with your mother. And again, it is different by your brother of choice, by your sister by choice, your cousin by choice. However you choose to put them into your family ensemblement is up to you. But they're all platonic relationships. So the first thing I do is I take out the attachment. Okay, this is your mom. Stop. This is Christine. Now, you have an issue with Christine, the human being. The fact that she's your mom in this instance really has nothing to do with it. Get that out of your head. What is the problem you're having with Christine? Well, when I'm in this situation, she doesn't listen to me. She jumps to conclusions that she thinks she knows what I'm saying. And I go on from there and just handle it as a relationship hiccup. Now, the first thing we delve into is, do you want to fix it? Or do you want to have space? And we carry down those roads because that allows people to create healthy boundaries no matter what stigma is set behind the relationship.
No, I like that you kind of like make that separation between like the roles people play and like the stuff they bring to the table. 'Cause I remember, and I know this is getting crossing the line into like the romance type of thing ish. My my ex-wife and I, we went for marriage counseling at one point because we were both having issues with each other. And one of the most unexpected questions that the marriage counselor therapist person had asked was like, and I don't know what he asked her, but he asked me, if you were to meet her now, if you were to get to know these characteristics about her through dating, would you marry her? Would you want to go on, say, like a third or a fourth date? And my answer was no. And he says, well, then what are you doing here? It's like, it was all about trying to establish, okay, like, let's not look at the situation like with family, with friends, with whoever, in the sense of, well, my imagination shows me what this idealized version of the relationship could be. I see what everybody else's relationship with their brother, sister, mother, father is. Therefore, my relationship with my brother, sister, mother, father should be. When really everybody else's family people, they're different people.
Mhm.
Your friends are different people from you too. And here's the one thing that like these air quotes again, experts, they tend to go one of two directions. Not everybody, but I'm just saying typically you're going to have that camp who is going to say that you need to like hold them to a different standard by putting aside your healthy boundaries and you need to reconcile. Or on the other end, you need to set unrealistic and still unhealthy boundaries and just cut them out of your life completely. They lose the nuance of the situation entirely because for some reason, because it's again, quote unquote, family, they want to pretend like different rules apply and different rules don't apply. It's not like a competition with your neighbors. I don't care. Like my next door neighbor, when her family comes over, man, she's got like a big family. Everybody comes over, they break bread together, they have barbecue, there's laughing. It's wonderful. I don't have that. So what? I'm gonna go and go kiss the ass of my toxic racist sister, of my abusive mother, of like basically all these different people for what? So I can play act some relationships because that's the way it's supposed to be?
Mhm.
No. Healthy boundaries, they can and they do exist. And while it's something I've struggled with to get to, like the door is always open should somebody express an interest in trying to navigate things differently with me. I'm not going to say like it's slammed shut in their face and they need to stay gone forever. But I'm also not like sending them letters, inviting them over to reconcile and come and hurt me some more. It's just the space needs situation. I can't control them. And like one of the things I always tell people is don't concern yourself with everybody else, concern yourself with you. Work on yourself.
Mhm.
If they don't come back, you're in a healthy place. If they do come back, you're in a healthy place.
Yep. And though of course I do agree that there has to be some give and take on both sides.
Okay.
That's how we come to working situations out. I don't believe in compromise. Compromise, somebody always loses.
Yeah.
But you can create a win-win scenario if both people are willing to work hard. And that works in any platonic relationship. Well, realistically, it also works in any romantic relationship, but I'm wandering off here. If people are given an opportunity to create healthy boundaries, there should never be a compromise. Well, you have to compromise a little bit to get this. Well, they have to compromise a little bit to get this. No, You don't have to compromise at all. You sometimes will have to accept that somebody else has a different personality trait that you might not like. And in that sense, if you still want to have a relationship with the person, then that's your job to learn to compensate. But you should never have to forgive something that's going to keep happening to you. You should never have to sacrifice something of your boundaries to keep yourself safe just so mommy will talk to you, just so daddy will hold your hand. No. After you're the age of 19 in most Canadian provinces, 18 in Alberta, 21 in the States, you're considered an adult. The minute you're considered an adult and your parents are not financially responsible for you or legally responsible for you, they now become a platonic relationship and should be handled just as though they were one of your friends that you happen to meet for coffee every Wednesday. Because the complications of relationships are only made complicated by people who put the stigma of blood on a relationship. That adds so much complication and so much stress. I have seen more people stressed because they're thinking, but it's my mom, but it's blood. And once I do 2 or 3 sessions with somebody and I explain that it's no longer your mom. In this sense, you're an adult. Is mommy going to come down and get you out of jail and represent you in court? No. So she's no different than any other platonic relationship. She deserves to have her boundaries, and you deserve to have yours. And it is your both jobs to say, okay, I want a relationship, but this is my boundary. I want a relationship, but this is my boundary. So, how do we work together to allow ourselves to understand the differences in each other, and first and foremost, accept the differences before you can solve any problem?
Or don't accept them.
Right. I'm talking to somebody who actually wants to reconcile.
Oh, fair enough. No, I think that's, I don't know. I don't want to get like too deep into like all the things that like might be the problem, but
Right.
I mean, like you say, there's like the expectations, they need to be adjusted.
Mhm.
The boundaries need to be
Right.
healthy, they need to be considered, they need to be adjusted. I agree with you that compromise, that's just a word for two people not getting what they want.
Yes.
Door number three, that's what I try to shoot for.
Mhm.
And when you're dealing with like family relationships as a rule, and I think to a much lesser degree with other platonic relationships, but where I think family relationships where I do agree they are different typically is the elephant in the room that needs to be addressed that nobody seems to see sitting there is the power differential. Like when you raise your kids, you're used to being the grown up and they're used to you being the dad.
Mhm.
And when your kids are adults, it's like they don't want to be the kids, but they still kind of are. They still like they want to enjoy the fruits of you being dad without the responsibilities of being grown up. You respond in kind by it's like, okay, well, I'm used to being in charge, and if you're not going to pick up the ball and run with it, I'm going to either kick you in the ass to like motivate you, or I'm going to pick up the ball and run with you. But you're going to keep on interfering with each other like that and putting unrealistic expectations on each other. Then there's this struggle, and it's a case of your kid comes, well, you never treat me like an adult, and you're like, well, you never act like one. And you're the asshole because you just called them out on something that's true. And the fight is on. The struggle begins. And I think if you want to have a healthy relationship with a family member, that's like one of the first things you need to look at is like, okay, like how do we deal with this power differential? How do I come to you and say, Mom, Dad, like I appreciate everything you've done, but I'm not a child anymore. Like I'm a grown ass man in his 50s with kids of his own. I get the struggle you're going through because I go through it too. And I'm not trying to take away from your experience, but like we're gonna have to work out something else, or this is just not gonna happen for us.
Yep. I had a in my revelation of putting in my head that family relationships, like a special love develops between a parent and a child, and I'm not going to deny that. And that love can be there even if you're treating the relationship like a grown up. And I had an issue at one time. So now I'm going to talk from the heart here, so bear with me, people. I raised my daughter to be very independent, to not have to rely on somebody because one day I'm not going to be here. And I want, or well, I did it with my son too, but this example specifically speaks to my daughter. And we were having this father daughter relationship. And like you just mentioned, sometimes I was doing the heavy lifting because she would pick up the ball. And sometimes there was guilt in there. And from both sides, it wasn't just her. And when I had my revelation, my daughter and I got into a bit of a disagreement. And there was a bit of an emotional roller coaster. And I ended up, okay, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm not going to get upset anymore that she's independent because I raised her to be freaking independent. How contradictory is that? How much of a hypocrite am I being? Also, though, I'm not going to fall for the guilt of being dad and being accused of not being there or being something different or being this or being that. And at one point, I went to her house and we had a bit of a conversation. And in the end, I said, okay, here's where I'm standing. Yes, I'm your dad, but our relationship is adult because you're an adult. So, blah, 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 said my piece, gave her what I had to give her verbally, and said, now the ball's in your court. What you choose to do with it is up to you. And that is probably the most adult thing I could have treated her with. That sounded wrong. That was probably the most adult treatment she's ever got from me. Because basically, I put it in her hand and I said, here's the ball. I'm looking at this as a platonic relationship now because you're an adult. Run with it. And I don't know if she consciously did it or if it was subconscious, but that day our relationship changed. I accept that she doesn't text me as much as I would like. She doesn't contact me. We don't have as much of a physical relationship. Like we don't go for coffee that often, we don't go for dinner that often, but our emotional connection is here from where it used to be, like here, because it was, but I'm the dad and you got to listen. But I'm the daughter and you don't need to treat me like a child, which both were valid.
Yeah.
Because I was her dad and I was treating her like a child. I was 100% in error the way I was treating her. And when I realized that, like I said, I gave her the ball and I said, no, you run with it. And our relationship changed. We don't talk a lot, but like just the other day, we went out for dinner and it was just like we had gone out 3 days ago. Not a heartbeat was missed, not a whine, not a complaint. Nobody got bitter with each other. We had adult conversation, but we're now both treating each other like adults.
Yeah.
And that's the respect she deserves.
Okay. Well, we've covered it's a lot of ground. One thing I wanted to touch on is like, okay, I know we spent a bit of time like talking about personal growth. Actually, a bit of time, quite a bit of time talking about personal growth. We talked a lot about kind of like dragging on the so-called experts, which I don't know why it is. I just puke in my mouth a little bit every time I say experts in this context.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the people who tends to lean towards the experts because they're not really super good at the personal growth all by themselves? And I know that there's people out there listening that will find themselves in that camp, and it's not like you're doing anything wrong. I mean, some people just it doesn't come naturally to them to figure out how to redefine the way to communicate, how to set or maintain healthy boundaries. They just don't know. And this is why they look for books that haven't been written yet. And they talk to experts who don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Right.
I think for those people, part of the work that you and I do, not just as coaches or as podcasters, but just as people in the real world, is we do take on a little bit of that extra burden because we are capable of developing these different skills, because we're capable of the growth in different ways, and because we're comfortable sharing about these things, we and not just you and I, anybody who would fit this description. I think we do a good thing for the people around us when we become that support system, when we become that example so far as we're capable to help people that are struggling with nonsense expectations. You know, mom doesn't love you. I get it. My mom doesn't love me either. You tried everything, so have I. I'm painfully aware that yes, she's my mom. So I'm not going to give you that bullshit. You know, like you have a mom too. It's an irrelevant detail.
Yep.
You've got feelings, you got boundaries, you're entitled to them. You're not doing anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There is somebody around you who gets it.
Yep.
I would encourage the people who do get it, maybe be a little bit more open,
That's
volunteer
right.
the information a little bit more for the people who don't think anybody gets it.
A
Your
little bit more
friends,
compassionate.
they probably want to help. You ask them. If they can't help you, hopefully they'll be honest, but you might be surprised to find out that your buddy Jerry is like, shit, I went through the same thing, and this is
Mm-hmm.
what I did.
And remember with that, again, this is a boundary in platonic relationships. You are not obligated to take advice. If somebody gives you a 15-minute dialogue on advice and only 1 minute of it works for you, throw the rest away. Throw the rest away. Use what works for you. You may have to talk to 15 people to get your answer. And everybody's going to give you a 1 sentence piece that works for you out of 15 sentences. But eventually you'll get those 15 sentences, and that's what will work for you. That's custom tailoring how you work with somebody else. Don't be afraid to ask a shit ton of people. If you don't have a shit ton of people, don't be afraid to ask many questions in different ways to get different responses.
It's almost like you're on a scavenger hunt for puzzle pieces.
Absolutely, because every relationship is unique, and in that, every relationship is a different picture. That's a 1,500-piece puzzle.
Fair enough.
So read the books. The books, probably 2/3 of it are not going to apply to you. That's okay. I'll take what applies to you personally. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. But never, ever, ever think you owe it to somebody to take their advice. And well, don't come talking to me because last time I gave you advice, you didn't listen. That person's not your friend. And I'm putting that right fucking out there. I give AC advice all the time. And because we know each other, it's a little bit different. A lot of it's relevant and a lot of it works. And same back and forth to me. So it's not one-sided. But I will say, okay, here's my thing. I'm going to give you my advice. I don't say it anymore, but this is where I went to. I'm going to give you my advice. What works for you, use it. What doesn't, throw it away. If none of it works, come back tomorrow and we'll talk about another angle. Or I say, okay, bro, what do you need from me? Do you need to yell at me on the phone just for me to be a receptor? Do you need to argue to get out some stress? Do you need to talk? Do you need me to shut the fuck up and just listen? What do you need? And the more you are that for somebody else with an open mind, the more you're going to get it back because people are going to learn from your example. People are going to understand what you're looking for if you state it right in the beginning of the conversation. So when your friend says, hey, no, I got a problem. Can I talk to you for a minute? Ask them. Don't be afraid. Say, do you want me to have a conversation with you about it? Do you want me to just listen? Do you want to yell at me? and let me be a sounding board for that so you can take out stress. Like, tell me specifically what you need from me so I don't walk away from here hurting our relationship because I didn't really know what you wanted in the beginning.
Fair. So I just want to brush past a couple things before I hand things over to you for your final thoughts. One is, I mean, when you're talking about like going to friends for advice, I agree with everything you're saying. The one thing I would like to bring up that maybe you didn't think of is when a friend offers advice, like Jason said, you're not obligated to take it. I would tighten that up even a little bit more. I would say that like when a friend offers advice, they're not like offering you like a blueprint that you're like obligated to build your house on. It's entirely possible that what they offer you is entirely useless, but because it's entirely useless, it ironically is useful because it jars you into a different way of thinking. You might just thinking of like the checklist of all the reasons why this guy's full of shit, and that might be the catalyst for you to actually like find your answer.
Mhm.
The other thing, which is totally unrelated, is I don't want anybody to think that we're just like intentionally like pretending that romantic relationships don't exist and that we're constantly just batting them to the side like they don't matter. I think romantic relationships do matter. They matter a whole lot. I think there's enough people talking about it. I also think that like even like while I'm having negative opinions of experts, I don't really have a super high opinion of romance experts either, because the complicated part of a romantic relationship isn't the romance, it's the relationship. And relationship shit is relationship shit. It's still two people that have their own traumas, their own opinions, their own lived experience bumping up against each other. And it's two people that maybe are convinced that each other are wrong, or maybe just something as simple as each one of us is feeling justified that even if we're not right, we're right enough. And you got to figure out how to navigate this stuff. I mean, like the romance, it's like, cool, any moron can figure out how to buy a dozen roses, chocolates. Any idiot can light some candles and kiss his wife on the cheek. Like, romance isn't complicated stuff. Relationships, I know we talk about it like it's simple, but it's not simple stuff. If it was simple stuff, as coaches, we wouldn't have
No.
clients. Anyways, rant over. Final thoughts, sir.
Well, like I said earlier, relationships are like puzzles. Everybody has a piece that can fit in somebody else's puzzle. Everybody does. Whether or not it's worth the time to invest, that's what you need to decide for yourself. Loving people doesn't take any effort. Keeping the relationship is what takes effort. So be real to you before anything else. Be real to you. Make sure you know what you want out of a relationship. And do not be afraid to define it. That's going to give you the opportunity to have the best relationship you ever did. When Tony and I finally sat down and put our egos out of the way and said, what do you need from me? And what can I give to you? We had an honest, open discussion many, many, many years ago, and many since. Redefining the relationship, reiterating, what do you need from me this time? What do you need from me in this time frame of our life now? Don't be afraid to be real with you, first and foremost, because that will allow you to be real with other people. And you can have a much more open and loving relationship, no matter whether it's romantical or platonic. Just love each other and move forward with that in your head.
All right, then. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you again. It's always a pleasure speaking to the audience.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I got nothing else to say. So until next week, my friends, one love.